You're listening to Tune Dig, a conversation between two lifelong friends about the power of music, one album at a time. I'm Cliff Seal.
And I'm Kyle Stapleton. Each episode, we talk about a single album in depth, unpacking it through conversation to understand what makes it worth appreciating and learning a little bit about life along the way.
If you're listening for the first time because we're covering an artist or a record you love, we promise you'll learn something new or gain a new perspective by the end of the episode.
And if you've stuck with us for multiple episodes, you know by now that you're bound to expand your horizons as we share clear entry points for artists you may never have tried to get into before.
Today we're talking about Mama's Gun by Erykah Badu.
Well, buddy, feels good to be back doing this. We've occupied our time with plenty of stuff.
Welcome to season 666. We've been excited about this for a while.
A lot has changed with us and in the world, but I have been looking forward to this very much, and it personally feels better every time we come back to do this. I feel sharpened in what I want to get out of this. And it's crazy. It's been 4 years or something at this point, and we're still just hanging out talking about records.
Yep, almost 4 years. I was trying to figure it out the other day.
But this has messed around and become almost a spiritual exercise for me. Not to put too much weight on it at all, but I have found some real purpose in this thing. And I think that makes the record that we're going to talk about today pretty appropriate, because it is all about energy and spirit and raising your vibrations.
And things that are hard to understand and dissect.
That's right. So, talking about Erykah Badu, somebody we thought we maybe understood and very much did not. We found out as we pressed in. It's been a very fun one to banter back and forth as we prepared. I think one of the first impressions that I had is how deeply personal this record is for so many people.
Yep. Had a bit of a repeat of the miseducation of Lauryn Hill phenomenon.
A little bit.
Yeah, where we pushed into it a little bit and then found out there's a depth of experience here that I haven't even begun to explore.
That's right.
That other people can tell me about. Yeah.
That's right. And specifically, we are doing this episode. I don't think it's unfair to say we're doing this because of Jacinta Howard, because it was brought to our attention by her through her partner, Mike Jordan of Butter ATL. They listened to the Voodoo episode, and she said, all right, when are they doing Mama's Gun? And that felt like a personal challenge. And I think
even then we might have responded with the oh, cool. So if we can finally solve this thing that keeps getting brought up where people ask us if we would ever do this or Baduism.
Yep.
And there is no good answer, so we didn't have a good answer. And this one sort of broke the tie.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's what we knew.
Which was a big part of my exploration of this record in general. Is
Yeah,
hold on, what are the
the other.
differences between those two? And why would there be an opinion, you know?
And then leave well alone everything that has come since those two records, which is, its own college class, probably. But, if you are listening to this right now, it's probably fair to assume that you being a person alive on the earth at this time, it's been a challenging couple of years. It's been 6 months or so since we put out anything new with the podcast about music. That's really the podcast about life and how to live in it. And by the end of this episode, my hope is that it's a helpful tool for somebody to reground in feeling good about moving forward in the world and raising your vibrations. I experienced a lot of emotions and thoughts and reflections over the course of getting to know this record, going from 0 to 60 with this record, that I thought I had a great sense of. And, we've had so many different versions of I have a new appreciation for not only this artist and what they were trying to do, but for music in general and for the radical act of creativity and the miracle of existence and the spark and all that. But it's yes, it's all of that, but it doesn't need to be all that serious. The headline is, I hope you will sit with this record and be very present and just remember to love yourself again a little bit. And I think that that's what Erykah would want too.
And I think what's surprised me relative to that idea, right, is with everything that is going, everything, just like gestures broadly, right? With everything that's going on, it can really feel like there is just a constant hum of, I don't think I'm overstating things here, shit. Just a constant hum of terrible, terrible shit.
Yep.
And it's really hard to find the places where things are getting better. Like, we know how to be positive as an exercise,
Right.
but we would kind of be lying not to say that there's always something to tune into right now specifically that's just actively bad.
Yeah.
And so, like, when that happens,
It's very easy not to do the exercise.
Yep.
Yeah.
and so to cheaply borrow, I guess, a lot of spiritual thought, like when you're noticing that about yourself, to your point about frequency, it's time to turn the dial. Like, you got to get quiet and look for something else now.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean that everything is okay. It means you as a person are like loving yourself enough to tune into something else while you still exist inside of that hum, you know? And so, like, to me, like, an example of that playing out on this record and really sitting with it is like, it certainly feels like a time where I would most be into penitentiary philosophy,
Sure.
and instead Green Eyes,
Yep.
right? Like, it really honestly took me a while to really feel like I could sit with Mama's Gun. Forget talking about it on a podcast, like even just like talking to anybody else about it casually, I felt like I couldn't quite get it. There was like dissonance with it. And only through sitting with it a long time, some repetition, some openness, and then towards, like, honestly, like changing my setting, right? I changed what I listened on. I changed the order of the songs and all that stuff. And what ends up coming out is me actually sitting with the more emotional songs, which, like, we like to laugh about a lot. Those are generally not the ones that I connect with a ton.
Yeah. That's
right?
my move.
That's right. But instead, just like being able to sit with it this long meant that I ended up having a totally different experience of this record than I had any of the other times that I'd ever heard it.
Yeah.
And so that idea of like, how can we find the frequency at all right now where we can tune into anything that makes us happy or introspective or whatever? I mean, that
or
is
just more us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Happy in the sense that we're more fully ourselves,
Yep.
right? Like,
Yep. Centered.
yeah.
Yeah.
And this record is such great practice for being able to tune in to a frequency at all. Like, you can use this album to do it, but it is also about tuning in to a frequency that no one else is on, which Erykah Badu has definitely been on for a good portion of her life, and is operating and vibrating at something different entirely, right?
If she has a superpower, that's it for sure.
Yeah. In that even that sense of like personal certainty in a context of newness or new experiments or whatever, like, that really hits home on this record as well as one that, and I'm excited to talk about this some, but like, you know, this is a record that gets talked about as a neo soul record, or Erykah Badu gets talked about as a neo soul album, which gets bundled in with D'Angelo and Common and all the, and that may be true, but that is not the story
Right.
of this record. And there are a lot of stories about this record that are not the story of this record.
And to the point that you and I, like, there's a lot of ink about this record, I would say, relatively speaking, overall. But you and I both got to a point where we were like, why isn't there more about this record?
Yeah.
And we realized that it wasn't, in fact, that. It was just that everybody was saying the same shit, and it wasn't going deeper than the first level.
Yeah.
And it's like maddening. And there's
Yeah.
a whole host of reasons
Yeah.
for
Like,
that.
everyone tuned into one frequency
Right.
coming out of this record.
Right.
And there are many. Erykah Badu, like we said, is on her own. You can join her there, but like, what I'm trying to say here is like, man, this was a really enlivening experience with this record in a way that a lot of other ones aren't, where it really did allow me to feel differently about the same songs, the same record, like the same guitar licks. Like, I could really shift around the way I was experiencing it and the way I felt about it. But what was different than a lot of other records we talk about, it's not really an intellectual journey about the specifics of the music itself at that point.
Right.
which is, I think, why it can get mixed in with all the neo soul stuff. Because like that is the right ethos to get lost in there and let things come up as they will, jam out and whatever, and see what shakes out of putting people together. But that doesn't mean that there's not a ton of layers here that can be studied almost from your heart, if that makes enough sense.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's, it's probably just like using different words to talk about the same God or whatever. But you're right about the neo soul ecosystem, same ethos thing. Like, you're not wrong to talk about her being part of that thing. And like, I think you're hitting at something. But what really unlocked it for me and allowed me to start to get there, because I was a little different than you in the sense that I just caught the vibe immediately, and I would put it on every Saturday afternoon ad infinitum and just like have it on and vibe and be like, man, this is a great record, but never really sat with why I thought why.
Definitely a great background record. We'll make sure we can say that for sure.
As good as possible,
Yeah.
a background record.
We'll talk about the active experience of it, but yeah, also a super good background
For
record.
like
a smoking record, a bathtub record,
Yeah.
any of that.
A great hanging out by yourself record, but a great, like, if you want everybody in your party at your house at a certain vibration, an excellent record to have on around people. And not just because it feels good and it sets the right energy, but you're going to get the right kind of people, like people who know that are like, oh shit, it's
True
Mama's
story.
Gun. Good people, good stuff, good selects. The thing that unlocked it for me was I learned recently. So in addition to her pandemic live stream stuff that she's been doing, she specifically did 2-hour-long guided meditations, one for NTS Radio, which is like one of the few music things worth giving your subscription money to every month. I have never regretted it. And one for the Headspace app. And thinking about this thing like an intentional direction of energy, of diffuse thoughts, because lyrically this record goes everywhere. It's about every feeling that you could have under the sun: good love, bad love, societal and political stuff, personal, emotional, whatever. I mean, hell, the record starts with like her whispering inner monologue stuff.
Have to remember to have to rest. Turn on the oven, spin long, we can warm up the apartment. And do services now sometimes. Have to rest, stop it. Big mouth, I need to take my vitamin. Why won't they stop? Stop it.
And they're all overlapping and they're not really discernible unless you turn them up. So I think that tells you, it foregrounds everything you need to know about the record. It's like, I got a bunch of diffuse thoughts and things, got a bunch of multitudes going on in my head and in my spirit. And I just need to like pull it all in. Right. And it goes from immediately from those little whispers overlapping each other to just one inhale, pull it all in, focus, like scream thing, right? It's like, all right, nope, we're here now to do the thing. Dearly beloved, we've gathered here today. And it's just, we're in the exercise now and we're going to see where it goes. And I love that.
I want to call out something we'll probably return to, but it's as good a time as any to mention it. Let's have fun. I take issue with the order of this record, not because I take issue with the artist being able to choose for herself what the order of the record should be, because I know that she was very hands-on about that. But I bring it up more to say I take issue with it in the sense that like it was really hard to connect in the order that it's in, which surprised me again, because like if you tell me the funk song is at the top, I'm pretty sure I'll like it top to bottom then.
Right.
And it just, I don't know why I couldn't connect with it. And I always like pointing out when that happens, when we cover these records, because of how I know how common the phenomenon is where you start a record just like, all right, we'll start and we'll see how this goes. And if the first one or two aren't hitting it for you, you're out of there, right?
Yep. Especially in the, I have to drive to a physical place and buy a physical piece of thing era, right? It's getting tossed out the window.
But what's distinct about this, I think, is it's not the first 2 songs or the first handful of songs or whatever are bad. No, literally, like I just by hopping down to, I ended up with a couple of examples of places to hop in that made a huge difference to me. But like either hopping in on Hey Sugar from there and going through like Booty and Kiss Me on My Neck and all that, and then just going straight through the rest of the album and then only adding the songs before that, like at the very end. So like Cleva is the last song. Like that worked really well for me. Or even hopping in with Bag Lady. So you kind of start with a weirder
As
vibe.
the first song?
Yeah. Well,
This version of Bag Lady or the remix?
this version.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
But I wanted to draw it out because I found myself like really shocked by when I would play with the order. I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved songs that I didn't like as much better now, because one reason that's fun to play with in general too is like her transitions here are nuts. Like I heard some references to this being more like go-go music in the sense of like, you know, go-go with the literal definition of it being more just like songs on top of songs that don't really end and just flow into the next one. And there's so much of that here that it takes on this kind of different flavor when you start with a different portion of it and let different portions of those songs kind of go into one another.
And do the transitions still kind of work?
Yeah. And that's why I kind of brought out that like I did them almost in chunks. So it's not like I reordered every song,
Yeah,
but would
yeah.
instead just start at a different point in the record and then let it cycle back up to the top. So that worked well. It kept all the transitions in place and all of the kind of intra sequencing that I'm sure that she did. Like there are definitely songs that like belong together. And so I still love
It's
that.
the
part.
whole jam band of like My Life, right caret symbol, and on right caret symbol, Cleva. Like, oh yeah, man, she did the tweezer thing. Sorry to invoke Fish in any way in in contrast to this.
Quick. You're cool if you didn't catch that reference.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kyle.
Not as sorry as I am Fish exists.
It's okay. We'll have a moment of silence for your cred.
You know, the more that I started paying attention and like really trying to catch moments, because I'm so guilty of, I will let a record ride for years and say that I really love it. And all I really mean is I love the way that it makes me feel. And I haven't studied it at all. And I like don't have a real relationship with it. That's my best friend. Like, well, what's his last name?
To name 3 of their songs now.
But with people in your real life, I would totally be guilty of that. I would totally be the guy in the Iron Maiden shirt and didn't know Run to the Hills. But with Cliff, like I got to think really hard sometimes, even with you. Like, what's Cliff's middle name? I don't know. I go through life like Odie the dog, and it's great. But the transition moments are great to me, and I think the arc. It's so interesting to me because the arc feels right. Like, coming out hot feels really indicative of a live show.
Yeah.
Penitentiary Philosophy is like, that is such a come out and the lights come up and they drop the curtain from the front of the stage. I mean, you can hear the liveness. I can't wait to go see that at the Fox Theater immediately. Right. And so you want to experience the energy of it in a kind of communal way. Like you can hear the group in that. And maybe it's just because a bunch of people shout right at the beginning. But then you get into the My Life and on Cleva chunk where it goes for 20 minutes and just vibes. But like those are really tight sequences where you can't tell where one ends and the other begins.
One, two, 1, 2. Now on and on and on and on. Wake the fuck up, cause it's been too long. Say, wait a minute.
And then the Kiss Me on My Neck, 82,000, Orange Moon, In Love with You, Bag Lady. It's like, that's a hell of a stretch. Like that on its own is ship it. That's the record. You know what I mean? But I think it's really interesting that right around the middle, it gets into that, like the band's going to go backstage for a minute and we're going to bring it down for the ladies or whatever. And it's the quiet, I'll bring out the acoustic guitar thing. To me, everything is in its right place. It feels like the hour and a little bit of change that this is feels like a live set exactly the way that I would want to see it. Right. And I don't really know how to parse out the feeling of this record works in sequence versus this is an exact record that I would want to see live, you know, and a lot of bands are doing the anniversary, playing the record front to back thing. And like, it's cool because that's the record as a capsule, but something about this just works because it's the way that she wanted it to be presented. I think it is a little bit chaotic good all over, but knowing how she labored over sequencing and that like she thought she had it, and the first CD pressing of this was like not the right track order that she landed on, and so there's a pressing out there that's in a different order, and then she wound up.
I was listening to a podcast. We'll have to link it up because I can't remember when it is off the top of my head, but I was listening to an episode with a bunch of people who love this record, and one person who genuinely had that version and had no idea that that was like the wrong track listing. And like, if you can just imagine being like, if someone recorded you discovering that one of your favorite records was like not the same version that everyone else knew about, it was really astonishing to listen because it's a whole new world opened up.
It's been so long since we talked about it that I don't remember if I mentioned this, but when we did Dummy by Portishead, I had the astounding discovery that iTunes didn't have the track numbers in them and that I had it in alphabetical order.
That's right.
So Biscuit and Glory Box were like the first two songs and they end the record. And I still love it. It's still one of my favorite records, but it definitely impacts my ability to like get through the whole thing when it just opens on Numb or a totally different vibe. And I feel like it's supposed to open with Biscuit. So I get that, man, once it gets in your bones, like there's nothing you can do about it. I'm glad that I didn't have a Santa Claus isn't real moment on the air, so to speak.
Well, one thing I thought about is I bet that coming from Baduism to this record was a little bit like that moment of shock in general. That is one place where having Penitentiary Philosophy first is like objectively the correct choice.
Yeah.
To go ahead and just, this record is not that one.
Sage your headphones.
Yeah. It was wild hopping back and forth between the two and trying to put myself back into I was not a big enough Erykah Badu fan at the time to have gotten this record when it came out, right? So just trying to imagine what would it have been like to have loved Baduism and anticipate this and then hear it for the first time. Because that was one of the more fascinating bits, I think, about this being this little narrative thread all in and of itself, like this little record called Mama's Gun that is from this incredible woman who's writing a record for her kid, basically, because Mama's Gun is referring to like these words being her kid's gun, which she would say later. And so like she's a first-time parent. She's going through all these relationship situations. She's young like we all are. Like that's always a thread that we talk about in music, is like anytime anyone that's a teenager in their early 20s is like writing stuff, it's just like, think about what was going on in your life. Man. But it's really fascinating to hear even the production differences between Baduism and this one, to the point to where like the discussion and the argument around which one is better or preferred just kind of became absurd.
Yeah.
And instead, that's where like understanding all the different places where Erykah Badu and this album kind of touched and influenced really opened things up for me from like a study of the impact of the record perspective, if that makes enough sense. Like we do not talk enough about how much this record in particular influenced a lot of people, and her as an artist for sure. Like her impact is everywhere and you can see artists talk about it, but it's almost like the whole phenomenology around this record is just like not enough. It's not representative of how much it actually did and how much is kind of contained in here. And yet that is appropriate coming from Erykah Badu.
I think the way that we growing up in Atlanta have seen Andre 3000, which I know is an interesting person to invoke in the context of this record, seeing how he is very explicitly influenced hip hop and rock and roll and kind of everything, with just his whole aura being one of like, you have permission to be weird, you know, you don't have to be a preset mold. And he walked even so that Kanye could fly. And then after Kanye came scores of others, right? Badu is that too. And like doesn't get the flowers for it outside of kind of rigid genre community of neo soul, which, like, if I'm being super honest, I had a little bit of a hard time taking seriously because you see a sort of archetype of a person or a community around it. It's like, you know what it's going to be. It's going to be like the really smart people from your college. They go down to the coffee house and they do the poetry reading or whatever. And it's like, I feel like I get your deal, man. So I only need X amount cap of it. And so that's why I really hesitate to put her in a genre box or almost disparage her with the thing that she kind of invented just by being herself. She's a genre of one. And you could say very much the same thing about Andre. Like it's very unfair to call Outkast hip hop in the same way that it's unfair to call this neo soul or to over attribute the contributions of the Soulquarians. It's important. It made a difference from Baduism. But I think your point is an astute one, that both of those records are out of her brain and her consciousness. You know what I mean? And they're both still so singular. They're very different from each other. They're very different from anything else that's ever been influenced by them or that they influenced. And I hope that's a thing that people recognize very clearly. Is I hope you listen to this record enough to hear the strains of Erykah in things all over the place. And one of my favorite things that I learned or observed in preparing for this episode was Mark Ronson having a conversation with her. And like the transcript was so interesting. I went and actually listened to the podcast audio, which, like, I know is the big sort of joke that we always say off microphone. Like, we have a podcast, but I hate podcasts.
Yeah.
But his enthusiasm for a knowledge of her career arc and specifically Mama's Gun was like, oh, it's cross-cutting. It's like, there's a transcendent energy thing in this record. So that was one of those moments where I like sat up in my chair and was like, I gotta go harder. I gotta hear it all. I gotta really know this record.
An experience I had like that made me think a lot about literally the year 2000 when this was released. You know, when I was mentioning trying to just imagine being in the situation of being a fan and waiting on this record and having it that year and all that stuff.
3 years between the records. Baduism was 97, I feel like. And then the live record was 98.
So one of the things that really struck me about, well, it hit me when I went back and started watching music videos, basically. So if we apply, this sounds so like heady and specific, but at this point we really love listening to music individually and together. So it really does involve this much thought. Like, we're kind of constantly trying to come up with thesis about like, what is a key or central thing about this album? Not only so we can talk about it, but like so that we can understand it. There's never going to be
why is it worth talking about relative to all the other records out there in the world? And that gets more important the longer we go on, because it's like, I don't want to just say the same thing about music over and over and over, because why would we keep doing this podcast? What would be the point?
Yeah. And like, I think some of the ways that we form our own opinions about it, like we have to decide that a record is worth talking about. And by doing that, we are kind of building up a defense of it, basically. We're thinking through, why is this the case and how would I explain that, you know?
But I think it's interesting. I haven't really thought much about our process between seasons, but we arrive at this list of 20 or something and get pretty instinctively, without having a lot of deep conversation around these, feel like things we need to or we could talk about or explore or whatever. Like, there's a thing on its face that's like, I understand there would be value in kind of going down the rabbit hole with this thing. And I don't know how we do that, but we do it.
Brute force. Brute force.
But it was evident for a long time. Like, Baduism was on the list, I think, like kind of at the outset when we first decided that we were going to have a podcast. And then we let it sit for a long time because I don't think we knew what to do with it, what we were going to say. We were still figuring out what we were really doing with this thing. And then the whole like Jacinta thing was a moment of clarity for sure.
For sure. Okay, so if we're kind of constantly coming up with kind of a thesis and we're sort of applying it then, like, okay, well, if this is the central idea of the record that would be worth talking about, great. Like, now let me listen to the record again and apply this, and like, does it work out? You know, it's just basic experiment stuff. So in applying that idea that we've talked about so much already, about there just being more to this, that there are frequencies to tune into, that there is more to this record than just like Erykah Badu did a record with Questlove, surprise. Like, it's not that that's not cool.
James Posner and Pino Palladino at Electric
I do
Lady
actually
Studios in New
stand
York
Pino
City.
Palladino. So.
Oh yeah. I don't mean that derisively of
That's
any
right.
of them. It's just like, that's not the story, bro.
Right. Yeah, it's just one like the story is, look at this bundle of independent stories that are being told, you know? And so anyway, so
narrative really is, how lucky were they that they got to work on this record?
Yeah.
Be part of it.
so applying that then when I started watching the music videos and remembering what the year 2000 was like, just like aesthetically.
Thong Song, was that a 2000 thing? Is that kind of like where we're at MTV wise?
That,
Limp Bizkit and Backstreet, was this like peak TRL? Was that 2000?
good grief.
Who's gonna get the number one spot?
When did Thong Song
This
come out?
flavor of
Yeah,
white person or
1999.
this flavor of white person?
Yeah. So,
I'm Carson Daly. I'm a
Yep.
massive tool.
So yeah, that period of time, you pretty much nailed it. Okay, so then just kind of going back and watching her videos, like the video for On and On Off Baduism was awesome.
Yep.
Okay, now fast forward to these. So it kind of hit me while I was watching the Bag Lady video, because, and I want to be really kind of transparent and vulnerable here, because I think this is what makes it worthwhile. I was like, I don't understand anything that's happening here.
Get it.
And it looks, I'm bored of it because I don't like,
It's shot
she's
in
like a huge artist.
it's shot
This-
on like a handy cam or something, like a home camcorder.
it kind of, it feels like that, but it's hard for me to figure out nowadays, now that we have like 64K
No, I'm like positive
video or
that's
whatever.
what happened.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember reading that is a thing that they did.
When you see it, there is a sensation that I had even that's like something is going on.
Yeah.
There's a reason why this is interesting or cool, because I know on principle, Erykah Badu would not just be releasing some stuff that doesn't make any sense, right? So, but I think it was the phenomenon of realizing like, especially couched in the overall aesthetics of 2000 and MTV and TRL and music videos and synchronized dancing and hip hop and all, especially then, if now even in 2022, as a grown adult who's like, pretty well read, takes myself pretty seriously, I'm looking at this video that is rich with meaning,
Yep.
and I've no idea what's in it. And I definitely wouldn't have had an idea in the year 2000,
Right.
right? When this is coming on after the Thong Song. And so, you know, like,
Or number one stunner.
When the light hit the ice, it twinkle and glisten. Baby Brian B. Bubble, you could call me with your fear. Hopping out the platinum Hummer with the platinum grill. With the platinum pieces and the platinum chain. With the platinum watches and the platinum ring.
oh my God. Thanks for putting that in my head now.
Remember Steve Harvey gave him a grill in like a trailer in the woods or something?
That sounds very
Dig
MTV.
that one out of your memory hole.
Speaking of memory holes, so like, unless you were watching pop-up video though, like you may not have ever caught a glimpse of like the depth of reference that she has here, that she's just kind of like displaying casually, because like, first of all, I didn't know that was like her mom and her sister in the video. I hope that comes across as sincere. Like I had no idea. Like that adds a level of meaning. 1, 2, like the colors that they're wearing in the video are like representing chakras. Like this is a very specifically thought out thing, with like Erykah Badu doing something very particular relative to the chakra that she's representing, all of this stuff. And then on top of it, like they in that video also quote portrayed characters from a 1976 choreo poem called For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide or When the Rainbow Is Enough. So man, it's really hard to kind of get this across without people being able to see like my hand motions. But like this is why picking up records and looking at them for a bit matters. Cause like, it's not really that important that I learned all these details about Bag Lady. Like, that's cool. Like, that's a sick video. I'm really glad you did it. You know, I can go learn more about everything that you're showing here. But it was more a moment of understanding, like, she will never and has never attempted to tone this thing down, whatever she's doing, to make it accessible or consumable for pretty much anybody.
That's right.
I'm 20 plus years on. I'm watching this video. She doesn't give a shit whether I get it or not, you know? But I'm able to, and she is sending out information. I'm able to tune into the frequency if I want to and like learn what she's trying to talk to me about.
Just delighted at the thought of our
Yeah.
mostly white male audience. Like, who's going to Google for color girls after this? I hope that they do. And they read, I hope that's a rabbit hole that some listener in Iowa goes down right now.
Yeah. But like,
Please pause the episode and go look up for color girls. We will return after a short intermission.
But like, that's the sort of, like, when you package all of those things together, like we've talked about having an experience of this record, like experiencing how the songs hit different when you change them around, experiencing how like the bass is like absent for the first few songs, and all of a sudden it shows up on Hey Sugar and like stays for the rest of the record. Like, those are the same part of the experience as like, what the fuck is she talking about in these songs? Like, wait a minute, this is for her son. Wait a minute, go back, go all the way back now. Tell me how all these songs are for her kid. Now I've got a new experience. Okay, well, like on top of that, well, what about Green Eyes? Green Eyes is a 3-part song written with these like distinct phrases and sections in them that literally have different production, that have different styles. She shows all her vocals. And wait a minute, this is about Andre 3000 and it's to her kid. Go back to the beginning and start it again. Like, you know what I mean? And like to me, like that's...
And oh, by the way, you don't need any of that
exactly
to appreciate the like.
You can just put
Green
it
Eyes
on.
on its face is if you just listen to that song. So the context for me always, if I need to really pay attention to it, is I'm gonna get in the car and go drive and just be by myself. I was coming home from my parents' house pretty recently, and you know, to reiterate, we listened to just the record we're about to talk about, like pretty much exclusively for a week or two.
That record and
leading up
record
to.
adjacent records.
That's right. That's right. So it becomes our whole world, which is like a cool thing. It rewires your brain when you do that. And we started doing it by accident to just like be respectful enough of have we put in the work enough. So, I mean, I've listened to the record a bunch at this point. I'm not unfamiliar with Green Eyes, and it's like the long song at the end of the record, but it's late at night, driving home back roads, coming back from my parents, and really understanding like I can see the moon clearly high in the sky. And anything that sounds like Billie Holiday, when you have a clear night, a blue moon night like that, it's like, it's going to hit different.
My eyes are green, 'cause I eat a lot of vegetables. It don't have nothing to do with your new friend.
And you're like hearing what she's saying in a setting like that. And the air is cold. You're breathing it in your lungs and you feel a little more alive. And then it goes into the next movement.
I'm insecure, but I can't help it. My mind says move on. My heart lags behind, but I don't love you anymore.
And then the next movement.
It's too late. I'm sorry.
Making you feel all the stages of grief, all the things all in one. And it's like, I haven't been that affected by a song in a long time. We've listened to literally tens and maybe hundreds of thousands of songs in our life. The bar is extraordinarily high at this point, but I just like, it took the wind out of my lungs. I cannot say enough. And I think we maybe put a pin in it for a second and come back to Green Eyes or however you want to do. But it's like, that's musically, if you do nothing else with this record, it's just like try to live in the headspace of that and let yourself feel all the feelings that you have undoubtedly felt at some point in your life, your love life, that have been related to that thing. Cause it's like songs like that are special. It's hard to do all the feelings that there's more than an English word for.
Yeah.
You know, it's like maybe there's a German word that captures all of the like weird contradictions that I hold in my heart at the same time. That an artist can get anywhere near that level of like nirvana and integration of the self is an astounding kind of miraculous feat. Green Eyes is that.
Yeah. The closest I have gotten to having the kind of like overwhelming feeling I got eventually about Green Eyes, and now that activates when I turn it on, was when we spent a lot of time with that Otis Redding record. Otis Redding will rip you apart, you know, but like I think what's wild about it is like part of the reason the Otis Redding songs were so impactful were because of their underlying subject matter and the kind of history they were talking about.
I was born by a river, in this little old town, just like this river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know.
So it's something really special to be able to pack in the emotional density of specifically Green Eyes and it still be about something as light as like how I feel about a relationship. Like it's really hard to kind of express this well because it really feels like if like there's such a razor's edge between like sincere sentimentality and just like farcical childish behavior.
Right.
You know, just like, okay, now you're just annoying talking about a thing that used to be, we're all sad, like move on, you know? And she spends 10 minutes on it. And if that wasn't hard enough, like check out the Tiny Desk version of this thing. I sat and I cried. I sat and I cried. I didn't even like necessarily identify directly with the message of the song, you know, like just like it felt magical. And even after that, which made me laugh because I later read the NPR article or one of them about that Tiny Desk concert. And they talked about how everyone in the room who was like recording it was like really quiet and astonished when it was done because it just felt otherworldly. And like that, the ability to step into a song like that written by a young woman about young love, right? I mean, I almost hate this example, but it's almost kind of Beach Boys level. Like it can take you to a moment of feeling a sensation that's super intense and almost feels like it's inappropriate and doesn't belong because if you snap back out of it, you're just talking about love, you know?
In line at Starbucks, realizing that you lost 6 minutes thinking about your whole life and the cosmos. And that's okay. That NPR story, I love. I mean, Tiny Desk is like one of the great American institutions, man. I'm so thankful.
Of course.
So
Anyone
thankful
who
that
gives
thing
to narrow in a
exists.
platform wins.
But also lets Joe from Idols get on the literal desk that someone works at and just scream about class consciousness, and lets Tyler, the creator, put pink lights all in the office that somebody's gonna have to break down immediately after they stop filming. It's one of the greatest things there is. Oh man, the Big Boy and Sleepy Brown one's really good too. There's so many good ones. It reminded me of when we talked about Allman Brothers, when they recorded Dreams and Dwayne came in and did that slide solo and everybody in the studio was crying. It's just like, what a miracle it is to be able to tap into, I have all of this in me and something for a minute, just for a minute, let it escape out and fill the room. That's as good as it gets, man. This record reminds me, and it's funny because I think she's on the soundtrack of Men in Black, the galaxy necklace that the cat wears. And just like everything is inside that little marble. And I remember distinctly having the like very stony thought when I was a kid. Oh, people are like that. People have the whole universe inside them. That's what feelings and stuff are. And then I was like, that's the craziest thing that has ever come into my brain ever. But I wasn't wrong. That's what this record is. It's a little galaxy marble. And a thing like Green Eyes, or I think my favorite song on the record is Time's a Wastin', and we can talk more about that in a sec. But I think the other place where you like really zoom in and get that same level of intensity is like an AD 2000, which is one that you could gloss over a million times. And if you don't have the context around that, not really know what heft it has. And as soon as you do, it hits totally different.
I did think an interesting kind of foil to Green Eyes, again, as a way of displaying the kind of range that's all packed into this record, is AD 2000, because here we've talked about the way we're feeling things because of the density of the vibrations in this music, the way the music is written, what the songs are about, mostly how they're performed, but their moment in time, all of that stuff, right? But almost like on the flip side of that is AD 2000 being extraordinarily direct, clear in terms of like, here's the subject matter, here's what we're talking about, here's the point. Like, and on top of that, again, when we talk about those kind of like layers where it's like, once you learn a thing, all right, now I got to go back and hear it again. Like for me, a song written from the perspective of a man murdered by NYPD is not necessarily what you'd expect on an album for your kid. And yet, again, there was that moment, right, where I went, like, no guilt, no shame, just like, yeah, not my kid. You know? It was, okay. Oh, like, I accept your laughter because I also laughed at that moment, just like, oh no. Like, that's why I kind of missed it and didn't understand it. And yet again, it's such an example of like, she's not hiding anything from me. That should have been pretty obvious. And on top of it is, comes with its own emotional weight and intensity from the fact that this was about a very recent event, like a very, historical event at that time that you could go learn plenty about. And just like, that's where the layers kept coming in and folding themselves in again, right? Like that's where we get that sensation where, you know, when we did the Tune Dig Radio episodes and we thought a lot about direct action and introspection, like this was again the moment that hit me. It was like, fuck, this was 20 years ago. And this, we're still talking about this, dude. It's arguably worse. Like just waves of emotion, right? Like that was like despair that I felt listening to that song. And then on other cycles through in other perspectives or contexts, this song was triumphant. It was a giant middle finger in the face of anyone who would dare to accuse her of not being tuned into reality,
Right.
of being, you know, out there or fanciful, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's pretty easy to describe someone like Erykah Badu as like kind of disconnected, almost like if we say she's on a different vibration, as if that were somehow a negative thing.
Right. Not in tune with reality. No, she very much is, and continues to display that pretty viscerally in a lot of different ways.
She kind of she talks about it, like she is aware of that in herself. To the point to where her, I'm sure we'll link this one up. The Vulture interview, I think, was that right?
I think so.
Yeah, like that. That gave me a pretty good idea, I felt, of where 2018 Erykah Badu's head was at, just kind of based on like you can actually feel her interacting with the interviewer. Yeah. And like returning to things that she said and like being nuanced about them. And then also saying kind of offensive things to test the water. And like, it was fascinating to see such steadiness from a human being over a 20-year span, like this 20-year span.
Yeah. Her gift, I guess, is that she is like that phrase, a part of the world, but apart from it. That's something that she's very good at. I continue to find her Dallas roots so fascinating. I love Texas, but I can't place her there in some ways. And it's like, well, Dallas is what it is because of Erykah Badu, not the inverse, you know, and knowing that she was Erica Free and she was like on the local hip hop radio station and had this background and this love of classic hip hop, but also came from a blues town and was very into blues and funk and just like has so many touch points that she hasn't like consciously made any of them her thing. She's 1,001 inputs and they just kind of turn her into that. But all of that's very like grounded earth sign type stuff to me. And then she has this whole other kind of water sign, mystical energy, but she's very real and like feet to the ground and connected to all of those things. And I think some of those quotes that you shared from other artists, and I would love for you to jog my memory on them, speak to like she is so iconic to very important expressionist type artists because she's a container for like all the feelings, right? And that the point that I'm trying to get to is when you listen to the record or even a single song and the light in the room is a little different on it, it's because you're pouring whatever of your, it's what you're bringing to that mirror every time.
Yeah.
And that it is at once exactly what she wants it to be and the exact same thing all the time, objectively in terms of vibrations, and a totally different experience from time to time within a single person's listening is like, that's a gift, man. That's a gift.
So those quotes, so these were great. We kind of pulled them back from 2001, whenever like this had gotten just enough time to make whatever immediate impact it had. Jill Scott said, which for the record, if you feel like Erykah Badu is like a neo-soul artist in the genre sense of the word, she calls herself a neo-soul artist offhand. So like, I won't take that. But like, if you think of her only in that musical context, who you're really thinking of is Jill Scott, so who made some great music too, right? But she was very steadily in that groove of that kind of neo-soul genre. And so she said when Erykah came along, that meant you could no longer deny the undeniable. After Erykah, the floodgates opened. She poked a big hole in the dam, and now I don't think they can stop it. She gave us a space for genuine artistry. And then India RE, right? Another person from that era we'd easily associate with some of this stuff. She said, somebody had to come out and let people know how Black women really think. Erykah made it to the mainstream first, and God made her first because it took someone with Erykah's dramatic flair and her strength. She was the spirit chaser. And so like even these artists, like right then at that time, we're seeing her as like the actual like spearhead of a thing, the unafraid artist able to go around poking just to find the soft spot and then walk right through it when she found it. And like, I'm so glad we've talked about so many different like angles of this record, because like that's the sensation I kind of take from it all. It's like, yeah, it was for her kid. Yeah, some of it's about 3 Stacks. Yeah, some of it's neo soul. Yeah, some of it is about diasporic stuff. Like all of that is a part of one giant forward motion through whatever wall happens to be there at the time. And I gained a new appreciation for what that wall looked like, thinking about the year 2000, thinking about how music came out then, thinking about what I was like then, you know?
The year 2000 was the wall.
Yeah, pretty much.
Time and space is the wall.
I mean, seriously. I mean, dude, like think about how long ago that was, like psychically. Like we were very panicked that our computers were all going to explode.
9/11 hadn't even happened yet. You could walk right up to the terminal in the airport.
Whew. Oh yeah.
Might as well have been.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like, and so for that to feel like so long ago, and yet to still like literally be able to feel the forward motion of all of these like stories that she's like, it's like she's pulling that whole big band of chords all forward. I just realized both band and chords as words mean different things, and that sucks in podcasts. So
Band of Chords, the new musical project from Coach Seal.
Rope. There we go.
Black Sabbath,
Iron and
Atlanta.
Wine. Oh man. Okay. Instead, let's picture a rope that are many threads that are threaded together. But like, it's just like she's kind of pulling everything forward and finding the way to make everything else come behind her. And I kind of love, in a sense, that her story musically after this wasn't necessarily like immediate commercial success or an attempt at commercial success. This was just what she did. And she talks about making music whenever, honestly, she feels like making music. And I mean, that last mixtape that she put out in 2015 is some wild stuff. I mean, like that opening track could go on tour with Full of Hell. Okay.
Is that the one? That's also the one with the Hotline Bling.
That's right.
Cell phone. Yeah.
Cellular. Yeah.
Device. She's so good.
But
man.
even that stuff is like, I'm not really sure if it means anything yet. If it almost feels like it needs 20 years for us to come back to it.
And then there's the trilogy, the quadrilogy.
Oh yeah.
Of New America.
Yeah.
It's like that's an entire P-Funk career in a handful of records. That's still impenetrable to me. But I know now more than ever, having spent time with this record, the same way that I set aside for 15 years that I needed to watch The Wire really intentionally. I know I need to listen to those records. And when I do, I'll be like, hell yeah, I love these so much. I just know preemptively and I'm excited about it.
It's true. I love that. That can be your takeaway, just like The Wire. Just listen to the damn thing so everybody can quit asking you about it. And you can be like, yes, I did listen to Mama's Gun. I'm sorry I didn't like Erykah Badu enough. Please forgive me. The Wire has too many seasons, you know?
It was the doc season. I couldn't get through the doc season. Mama's Gun is not the doc season. It's the Amsterdam season, maybe, if anything. Watch The Wire. One thing I want to run through really quick. I don't know that it always warrants it in an episode, but I just want to do like greatest hits of active listening musical moments. I hope we do a lot of that this season, honestly, because I think the lineup that we have warrants some really deep listening stuff. Certainly this does. Certainly the like next few that I can think of really warrant moments and reward them. So, you know, we talked about the sequencing, feeling like a live set, like try in the first block of song from like track 3 to 7 or whatever to catch the medley transition moments. Cause that's just a fun thing that's a signal to yourself that you're starting to really get to know the record. And that just feels good. Cleva was the first song. I mean, I knew Bag Lady, specifically the remix, a long time ago. But when I first started appreciating this as a record, Cleva was the first thing because I love Roy Ayers. I love Everybody Loves the Sunshine. And it's like so dope that she got one of her musical heroes on not one, but multiple songs on this thing. And I'm a little frustrated that there's like no literature about that. There's no, like, tell me how he just casually came to be at the studio hanging out with you and pulled the vibraphone out. And here we are doing this thing. I want to know everything about that. And I couldn't find it. So if somebody else can, please at me on social media. He does a thing on Cleva when he's playing the vibes where he's singing as he's playing the melody line or the improv thing.
Is he John Mayering?
He's doing that thing that very few guitarists or instrumentalists can do. They hear the melody that they know they're about to play on the instrument and they do it. They sing it out loud. Like that's a level of prodigy that I'll never approach with anything, right? But it's like buried. You got to really be listening to it.
There's a ton of buried production stuff on Cleva.
Yeah.
I even pointed out, especially relative to active listening stuff, starting at about 2.5 minutes in all the way to the end, like there's just like almost experimental noise in the background in various like layers. I ended up turning it up and up and up to just keep listening to all the stuff that was hidden in there.
So one quote that I found fairly early that blew my mind that I think relates to that is one of the articles said, when Erykah Badu creates a new song, she begins with instruments that are usually treated like accessories, like singing bells, shakers, mallets, and tuning forks. It's been that way since Baduism, her debut. Her quote is, "What draws me in, and you and anyone else, is that those frequencies and tones connect with our organs and cells," she said from her home in Dallas. "You're able to cancel out certain ailments. You're vibrating the molecules apart." So when you catch a little thing, I don't think it's overstating it to say like you are changing your frequency by really dialing into a record
Yeah.
with an artist whose intention is to straight up vibrate your molecules apart.
Yeah.
Who the hell else are you going to hear saying some shit like that about the song?
Dude,
I got a song about an octopus.
to that end, this is a lot like Channel Orange in the sense of like active listening and diving in and in and in and in and in,
Yeah.
keeps unveiling little
Yeah.
things back to you. And yet the whole overarching idea of the thing is like trying to describe sensation,
Yep.
you know? So like, you know, Channel Orange is synesthesia. This is, you can just take on these different emotional states. I feel like maybe that's a better way of saying what we've discussed so far. And like, that's when those kind of active listening moments hit different.
It's Björk's emotional landscapes, but you have a map. So, all right, a few other things. Kiss Me on My Neck, another song that I really
Kiss
love
me.
on this record. There are a number of places where she contrasts lyrical subject matter and groove or musical intensity of the song. So like Kiss Me on My Neck is really tender subject matter, but the groove is pretty hard.
Yeah.
It's like a pretty active thing in a way that kind of love is really energizing. You're in your kitchen in the morning and you're like, oh, hell, and your biscuits taste better when you make them. And then on the flip side, 82,000 is really strong subject matter and a really, really tender arrangement.
Yeah.
So I love that it's like the protein and the container like complementing each other in that way always, right? And that's counterintuitive when you're songwriting to do it like that. Kiss Me has a musical moment on the record. So like the template ostensibly is the neo soul thing that you've heard a million artists do since, you know, especially at every open mic night in any city across America. But when she diverts from that kind of main sound are the most interesting parts of the record to me.
Yeah.
So the end of Kiss Me drops out into a tabla and bongos and a flute jam. Like I'm a sucker for flute, especially jazz flute, like a Bobby Humphrey type joint. And it's so unexpected to me. But it's one of those that if you got it just going on a loop, it's easy to gloss over that minute and a half, 2 minutes. But it's like one of those really cool things, and everybody is kind of hitting at just the right level of energy and presence. So that's a really good thing to me. 82,000 is like a recording masterclass, especially with close miking and acoustic. Betty Wright is on background vocals on that. That's a whole rabbit hole. You may not know her singles, but Clean Up Woman in particular, as soon as you hear it, you will know it as a sampled song. But 82,000, I think, is really effective at achieving its thing because there's a bridge jam or something kind of on the back third or quarter where it swells and there's no lyrics, but it's almost sort of a cleansing of the heaviness of everything that's happened. That's the music is greater sign words moment as you're going to get on this record or anywhere. Then you go into Orange Moon, and there's great chimes and piano on that. But just the fact that there's crickets throughout that whole thing, and then carry over in the transition into In Love With You. Orange Moon is really interesting because it's got those 5% Nation allegorical allusions. And I didn't know what 5% Nation was.
Yeah.
Did not realize how much of the classic hip hop that I loved had 5% Nation vocabulary. So another thing worth putting in the thread for this episode. But there's a set of flute arpeggios and piano stabs, and that song, after being pretty soft for most of the time, hits an emotional crescendo of filling out that feeling. And it felt like pouring a champagne glass to the very tip top. And then the last one or two that I really liked were listening to the reverb on not only the vocals, but the snaps on In Love With You.
Yeah.
Taking it back to Mark Ronson, he's got a show on Apple TV called Watch the Sound, and an episode specifically about reverb. And I watched that 2 days ago, and then started hearing all the songs through that context. I was like, oh my God, this is an amazing and purposeful use of reverb. I'm great at listening to music now.
Okay, well, if you had to focus on something in Love With You, probably the reverb of the snaps would be the right one, because song itself is a little hey, can we do a duet with Bob Marley? No, he's dead. Okay, what about Ziggy Marley? Unavailable. Are there any Marleys here? Stephen Marley walks up to them. That's all I've ever been. Okay.
But what if they're friends? What if they're good friends in real life? What if he was the preferred Marley?
Well, that wouldn't help my joke. So no.
Well, fuck me, right? But the last thing that I want to point out as a musical moment that I really appreciate is Times a Wastin', which is familiar to me mostly through the lens of Big Crit song that samples Times a Wastin'. I think it's King's Blues off of the second Crit record, I believe. But also having had a lot more spins of all the music I love since this record came out, Times a Wastin' in lyrical content, but also in the style of the groove, and knowing that Erica loves Outkast reminded me of Get Up, Get Out, kind of maybe her version of Get Up, Get Out. And I really appreciate that about it. Gives me a lens through which to appreciate it. It's also one of the only songs that doesn't bring in drums first. Quest counts them off in a number of songs, or it's transitioning grooves between the last one, but it starts with Rhodes keyboard. And it's like when you drink really cold water and it lets you take a deep breath. It really opens up. And then Johnny Hammond is if you love sampling, Johnny Hammond is a great go-to sample guy. But flipping the vocal melody of a Johnny Hammond song, Can't We Smile, in the bridge, where it gets kind of up and floaty and dreamy. That's one of the moments that I really love on it.
Oh, man. I totally almost forgot. Now that I've opened the door to it by mentioning sampling, which, I've never been shy about celebrating my love of on this podcast, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge probably my favorite musical underpinning of the whole record, which is the story behind the sample on Didn't You Know, and probably one of the better known samples in general, certainly of that era. I know I've been going on for a hot minute, so let me just quickly pull up and read Erica's account of that story because I love it. She said, I met Dilla through Common around 98. Common and he were good friends, and I went to Detroit because I wanted him to be on my album. I didn't know in what way, but you always hope something works out great, and if not, you'll be good friends. So I went to his basement, and every wall from floor to ceiling was records categorized. He was a scientist. If you opened his fridge, all the cans were turned the same way. It looked like a graveyard. Everything was perfect. He let me pick out some records, and there were a lot of things I'd never heard before in my life. One of them was a Tarika Blue record. She also mentioned on another interview just saying she really liked the cover. She said, I was like, wow, this is beautiful. And the first song on that, Dreamflower, became Didn't You Know? Not only did he let me pick out the record, he let me pick the spot in the record and taught me how to sample the portion of the song on an MPC 2000. He was very humble. He wasn't like, this is my lab. He was like, if you like this, you can probably do it. And that's where I got my first sampling lesson from Dilla. She also said, Dilla and Madlib are so serious about what they're doing. They just make beats all day long. That's what they do all day long. Don't even save them. They just put them on a CD. They give out these CDs from volume 1 up to 121. And when you pick a track, they don't know where the sample came from. It's just beats. That can be the difficult part, not knowing the sample. You don't want to get sued. Like I believe Dilla did for this, actually. So the record label's doing research, trying to find out where it came from, because that's just what they do all day.
So you have about an hour of material. Say you listen to it 20 times. Each one of those is like a galaxy marble to kind of go in and out of and feel a specific feeling really, really deeply.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to connect some of the technical musical moments to like the kind of vibe, the world that they build.
That you can't learn or think too much about this
Truly.
record at all. Which may not be the case for some other records we'll talk about, like Meshuggah. You may want to temper yourself for that one, but like here, it is praises go up and the blessings come down, bro. Like, you go looking for something here and you're going to get more in return for sure. And like covering the, some of the more production or technical aspects of it is just another layer that's rewarding as well. I think that's really the big takeaway for me is like, think about the vibration aspect as a series of experiences that you can have with this record, but every one of those attempts is going to be unique. You'll notice something different every time, not noticing more each time, noticing different specific things every time. Based seriously on your headspace.
Go to tunedig.com for your chance to win a free vinyl copy of the album we just covered. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter for even more info about the album, including playlists, links to interesting articles and videos, and even some stories that didn't make the episode. Most importantly, though, please support your favorite local record store or concert venue, or buy merch from a band you love. Thanks for listening.